The House will come to order. The pledge today will be led by Elsa Dean Kendall, Crestview Elementary, Boulder, Colorado.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kohler, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt, Becker J, Becker K, Brown, Buck, Buckner, Carver, Conti, Corum, Court, Danielson, Del Grosso, Representative Del Grosso, oh, Dorr, Duran, Edsgar, Everett, Fields, Representative Fields, Foote, Garnett, Janal, Hamner,
Representative Hamner excused.
Hamner excused, Humphrey, Joshi, Kagan, Klingenschmidt, Kraft-Tharp, Landgraf, Lawrence, Representative Lawrence, Lebsock, Lee, Leonard, Lontine, Lundeen, McCann, Melton, Mitch Bush, Moreno, Representative Moreno,
Representative Moreno excused.
Navarro, Neville, Nordberg, Pabon, Pedersen, Primavera, Priola, Rankin, Ransom, Rosenthal, Rupe, Ryden, Same. Representative Hamner is present. Salazar. Representative Salazar.
Representative Salazar excused.
Sias. Singer. Representative Singer.
Representative Singer excused.
Thurlow. Tyler. Van Winkle. Vigil. Willett. Williams. Wilson. Windholes. Winter. Wist. Young. Madam Speaker.
How are you? Oh, good, good. I was just running around here. I need to go find Singer really quickly. But we'll do thirds. We'll do seconds. I'm hoping these don't take too long. Not doing the resolutions, not doing the memorial either. So just seconds.
Representative Salazar is present.
Awesome. Seconds and thirds. Representative Duran. Thirds and seconds.
Until 10:30. My body's hurt, but mentally. I mean, what qualifies as here?
Can you push a button?
No. What's a bus?
Yeah.
like push buttons.
True. Yes, sir. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
With 63 present, 2 absent, a quorum is present. Representative Willett. Representative Willett. There you are. Please proceed, Representative Willett.
My apologies, Madam Speaker. I move that the reading of the Journal of Tuesday, April 19, 2016 be dispensed with and that it be approved as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
You have heard the motion that the journal be adopted as corrected by the Chief Clerk. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. Motion carries. Announcements and introductions. Representative Corman, give me 2 seconds, Representative Corman.
Thank you.
Members, please place your attention to the well. We are in announcements and introductions. Please proceed, Representative Corman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, listen up. This is very important. Because today, at between 9 and 1, the Colorado Coalition of Massage Therapists are going to be giving massages outside the Supreme Court chambers. And unlike many in this room, they will not rub you wrong.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Ryden, can you top that?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the State Veterans and Military Affairs Committee, we are meeting in LSBA today on adjournment. We have a full calendar. Let's try to be prompt. And you may need to order out lunch, have your aide bring lunch. It looks like we may be there for a couple of hours. Thank you very much.
Representative McCann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Reminder, members, we have the Claw Caucus tomorrow at noon in LSBA. Lunch will be provided. Hope to see you there. Thanks.
Representative Arndt.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today, I'm very happy to have on the floor over on the side, and you can go meet them and introduce yourselves, please, the members of the Classified Personnel Council, many of them from Colorado State University and Fort Collins, so thank you for coming.
Representative Fields.
Good morning, Madam Speaker. Members of local government, we do have one bill up this afternoon at 1:30. Thank you.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, I need to make a clarification to yesterday's announcement.
Members, may we have your attention to the well, please?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This announcement is critical. To clarify yesterday's announcement, some of you didn't understand why I got up here and gobbled like a turkey. Number one, there's a turkey on the announcement sheet. Number two, the National Wild Turkey Federation will be one of the exhibitors at the Sportsman's Day at the Capitol. And number three, we will be having hot dogs, but we won't be having turkey fries. And for those of you that don't know what those are, look them up on your phone. Thank you.
Further announcements and introductions. See no further announcements and introductions. The next order of business is third reading of bills, final passage. Members, please take your seats. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 13. We'll have a brief recess. The House will come back to order. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of... Tyler's up first. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to lay over House Bill 1368 until April 21st.
The motion is to lay over House Bill 1368 until as requested by the Majority Leader. See no objection, so ordered. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1313.
House Bill 1313 by Representatives Arndt and Corum, also Senator Donovan, concerning the authority of local government master plans to include policies to implement water plan goals.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1313 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1313 on third reading and final passage. See no discussion. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 44 ayes, 21 noes, and no excused, House Bill 1313 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1363.
House Bill 1363 by Representative Singer, also Senators Newell and Tate, concerning rulemaking authority for medical marijuana advertising directed underage persons.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1363 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1363 on third reading and final passage. Representative Zayas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, first of all, I have the greatest respect for Representative Singer and what he is trying to do to protect our kids with this piece of legislation. And as a dad, I want to vote for this, but in committee, I voted against it, and I'll vote against it today because I think that as well-intentioned as it is a violation of commercially protected speech. There's a long line of cases that I think back this up, and I think this is just simply too broadly worded and is a violation of our Constitution, both Colorado Constitution and the United States First Amendment. So I respectfully request a no vote.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I also appreciate Representative Zayas's opinion and respect him, and as well as our Senate sponsors, Senators Newell and Tate. The Supreme Court has rejected multiple free speech challenges based on laws passed to prohibit tobacco sales to kids, to minors. There is federal precedent for this. Not all speech is protected speech. This bill, if written into law, actually aligns a lot of what we already do in the medical or in the recreational marijuana world. And so if you're against this, I'm assuming you were against that as well. And if you want to be ideologically consistent, that's fine. But what this is really about is making sure that we don't have another Joe Camel for marijuana, making sure that we don't have another version of something that's attractive to kids that's really meant for adults. The marijuana industry even came and testified in favor of this because they don't want to do the wrong thing either. One of the things that we need to do if we're going to do this right in Colorado is make sure we stay inside our own federal guidance that was given to us. Our own federal guidance says, don't sell this to kids. That's what this bill does, is it makes sure that in our medical world, as well as our recreational world, this isn't sold to kids. And so I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Zayas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it is true that not all commercial speech is protected. However, the Supreme Court has set up a four-part test to assess whether commercial speech is in fact protected by the Constitution. And without going through all four prongs of that, the fourth of those is a means narrowly tailored to achieve a desired objective. And the Supreme Court has overruled, has struck down state tobacco restrictions that, in my opinion, are considerably more narrow than the one in this case here. Let's talk about an example. Let's look at the language of this proposed statute. It says a prohibition includes the statement, a prohibition on mass market campaigns that have a high likelihood of reaching persons under 18 years of age. Well, I would submit to you that there are any number of publications that are directed at adults, whether it's The Economist, Smithsonian, National Review, or Mother Jones, just to make sure we're covering the entire political spectrum here. And while those and the advertising in them may in fact be directed at adults, it is a virtual certainty that at least some precocious minors will actually read that information. And therefore, I think this is overbroad. I will also mention that one of the considerations that the Supreme Court looked at in invalidating the tobacco regulations was the fact that there may in fact be some truthful information that is of value to adults. Whether that, in my mind, that might be questionable regarding tobacco, but the fact is, regarding medical marijuana, which is what this is about, we have heard in testimony that in certain situations, medical marijuana, in fact, can be helpful to children. So by virtue of this regulation, we would prevent adults from receiving valuable, truthful information that actually could be helpful to them and their families. Regardless of my personal views on marijuana and the marijuana industry, I think this regulation goes too far when it comes to commercial speech.
Is there further discussion on House Bill 1363? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1363. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 40 ayes, 25 noes, and no excused, House Bill 1363 is passed. Co-sponsors. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1273.
House Bill 1273 by Representative Arndt, also Senator Todd, concerning limited authority for the Department of Transportation to enforce parking fines for violations of rule governing parking at department parking facilities.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1273 on third reading and final passage.
The question is the passage of House Bill 1273 on third reading and final passage. Representative Arndt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I ask permission to have a third reading amendment.
Please proceed, Representative Arndt, and put that in the form of a motion, if you would, please.
Oh, I'd like to move L003. I move for permission to have a third reading amendment.
Thank you. The motion is for permission for a third reading amendment. Please proceed, Representative.
Now I move the amendment.
To explain yourself.
To explain the amendment. This amendment is a cleanup amendment. Where our bill came out of appropriations quite quickly, and it came on the floor that same day. We got the amendments together. There were some drafting corrections that we would like to make today. These are technical cleanup corrections, and I urge an aye vote.
Is there further discussion on permission for a third reading amendment on House Bill 1273? Seeing none, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Rankin. close the machine. With 47 ayes, 18 noes, and 0 excused, permission is granted for a third reading amendment on House Bill 1273. Representative Arndt.
I move Amendment L003.
The motion is to pass L003 on House Bill 1273. Discussion, Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I have a question about this amendment because it says the department shall not promulgate a rule to prohibit parking. So I'm a little bit confused on this. If you could clarify that, because I thought the purpose of this bill was for them to promulgate rules. Can you just explain that?
Representative Arndt, would you like a brief recess? We'll have a brief recess. The House will come back to order. We are currently in the motion L003 to amend House Bill 1273. Is there any further discussion on L003? Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This amendment is reformatting with regards to the structure of the bill. We ask for a yes vote.
Is there further discussion on L003? Seeing none, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Representative Court. Close the machine. With 40 ayes, 25 noes, and no excused, House Bill 12, or the amendment L003 is passed. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move for the passage of House Bill 1273 as amended on third reading and final passage.
The motion is to pass House Bill 1273 as amended. Is there further discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Kohler, please open the machine and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 36 ayes, 29 noes, and no excused, House Bill 1273 is passed. Co-sponsors. Close the machine. The next order of business is general orders, second reading of bills. Representative Escar.
Madam Speaker, I move the House now resolve itself as the Committee of the Whole for consideration of general orders.
You have heard the motion. Seeing no objections, Representative Escar will take the chair.
The committee will come to order. With your unanimous consent, the bills will be read by title unless there is a request for a reading of bill at length. Committee amendments will not be read unless requested as they are printed and in your bill folders. Floor amendments will be shown on the screen and on your iPads and not read unless requested. Bills will be laid over upon motion of the Majority Leader, and the coat rule is relaxed. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1366.
House Bill 1366 by Representative Primavera, Senator Stebbins, concerning enhanced protections for purchasers of hearing aids in connection with requiring the Director of Division of Professions, Occupations, Department of Regulatory Agencies to adopt rules that require the disclosure of hearing and pricing by hearing aid providers and audiologists and require the explanation of different communication options available to hearing aid users via technological advances for different environments used by hearing aid users and making violation of these rules a step to trade practice on the Colorado Consumer Protection Act.
Nice job, Mr. Kohler. Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's a hard act to follow. I move House Bill 1366 and the committee report from Public Health Care and Human Services.
To the committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The committee report did several things at the request of hearing aid dealers. Oftentimes, people purchase hearing aids from places like Costco or other big box stores, and they are locked, which means that nobody else can get in and make adjustments or repair them. And if they're out of town, this creates quite an issue for people with hearing aids. So they just wanted to make sure that people knew that some dealers locked their hearing aids, and also that they wanted to make sure that they could be provided with a list of people who could repair or adjust those hearing aids should they need to.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the Public Healthcare Committee report. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. To the bill.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here today to present House Bill 1366. Age-related hearing loss often begins around the age of 45 or 50, and 55% of people over 60 are deaf or hard of hearing. Hearing loss is 7 times more prevalent for persons over 65 than for those under 65. And hearing loss is the third most common condition next to hypertension and arthritis in the elderly population. The hearing aid is the second most widely used assistive technology equipment after the walking cane, and more than 70% of hearing aid users are over 64. There's no insurance that pays for these aids, not Medicare, not Medicaid, not private insurance. There's only 3 states that cover hearing aids. When I taught disability awareness training, one of the worst disabilities to have is deafness because it's a 360-degree loss. The consequence of hearing losses differ from person to person, but most people with hearing impairments suffer from social, psychological, and physical problems as a result of their hearing loss. That may include isolation, anger, depression, withdrawal, and job performance and earning power. Since there are no insurance plans that cover these aids, many seniors often have to forego because of the price of the hearing aid. What this bill does is it makes sure that patients understand what the cost is for their hearing aids and what services are covered in this bundled price. My original intent was to try and unbundle these so a patient could pay for just the aid, just the batteries, just the cleaning, just the adjustments, but that's not allowed apparently by federal law. So I ask for an aye vote about this bill for transparency for senior citizens. Thank you.
Representative Conti.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, we did hear this bill in public health, and I can tell you, while we are certainly sympathetic to seniors who may desire greater transparency, fact of the matter is, if you've ever opened one of these small appliances, you know the instructions that you can pull out that's been folded very tightly that literally you can accordion out to about 2 feet. Literally, the instructions
Representative
and all
Conti,
the
one
things
moment,
that were
please.
talked about in this bill that had to be included in the instructions could have been put on that to allow for that transparency.
Excuse me, one moment. Members? It's getting a bit loud in here. We can't hear what's happening at the well. Please take your side conversations outside. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, Representative Conti.
Thank you. And so we became aware that this could have been put in literally this sheet of paper that accordions out to 2 feet, providing really little transparency for consumers, yet another mandate on private industry, and that's why we felt it was a necessary no vote.
Representative Primavera.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And actually, the hearing aid dealers and the audiologists are in favor of this bill. This provides transparency so that an individual that pays sometimes $3,000 to $7,000 for hearing aids understands exactly what they're paying for, that it's not just the hearing aid, it's a lot of services that go along with it. So I ask for an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1366? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1366. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. House Bill 1366 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read House Bill 1348.
House Bill 1348 by Representative Ryden, also Senator Todd, concerning specific crime of cruelty of law enforcement service animals.
Representative Ryden.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move House Bill 1348 and the Judiciary Committee report and Amendment L006.
To the committee report.
Which I ask to be displayed as soon as I give it to
Amendment L006 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Rydin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think as you recall the other day, we started a conversation about this bill, and there was some concern about the way the restitution penalty was going to be applied. And so we went back to the drawing board and came up with Amendment L006, and that is what you have before you. It will change the restitution so that malicious intent needs to be involved to get restitution for training and certification costs. And I urge an aye vote on Amendment L006.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L006? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L006. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Amendment L006 passes. To the committee report, Representative Rydin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I move that the committee
Representative Rydin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and the clerk has just reminded me that we need to repass Amendment L003 that we had passed when we originally had this conversation, and that simply changes the title to conform with the other changes we made in the bill regarding certified police working dog. I move Amendment L003.
Amendment L003 has been moved and is properly displayed. Any other discussion on Amendment L003? Seeing none, the question before us is the repassage of Amendment L003. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. L003 is repassed. To the committee report. Representative Rydin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members, I urge an aye vote on the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the committee report to House Bill 1348. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Rydin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I think we have already had a discussion about the issue at hand here. Just to remind you, I think we all know how important it is for our law enforcement agencies to have the right tools for the right situation at hand. And certainly our police working dogs are an integral part of our law enforcement agencies. And we do need to recognize that, and that's basically what this bill does. I urge an aye vote.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1348? Representative Kagan.
Madam Chair, I just want to thank Representative Rydin for bringing this bill and for working with all those who had concerns about the bill to make it a bill which both protects those who might be charged unfairly with this and also to protect police working dogs. And Representative Rydin has really worked very well with everybody involved and all the stakeholders, and has come up with a fantastically carefully crafted compromise on this that really merits your vote, and I do urge an aye vote on this bill.
Any further discussion on House Bill 1348? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1348. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. 1348 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1373.
House Bill 1373, Representative Singer, concerning requiring school districts to adopt a policy permitting the use of medical marijuana by students authorized to use medical marijuana.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and happy 420, everyone. I move House Bill 1373 and the Agriculture Committee report.
To the Agricultural Committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to thank the members of the Agriculture Committee. They heard some very tough testimony from a lot of parents in tough situations and kids that are trying to make the best out of a tough situation for themselves. We heard from kids who are suffering from serious debilitating illnesses, who no longer want to choose between their medication and an education. No one should have to choose between their medication and their education. And so one of the guarantees that I made to the Agriculture Committee is that I would continue to work on amendments with committee members that had concerns. Even though it passed out 10-3, we heard a couple of those. We heard a couple of those concerns, and so with that, I move Amendment L004 and ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L004 to the committee report has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Amendment L004 clarifies that this is non-smokable marijuana, clarifies that the parents, if they are distributing this or administering this to their children, can't do it in a way that creates a disruption to the educational environment or causes undue exposure to other students. It also clarifies that if a school district or charter school loses federal funding, then they are held harmless by the state. The school districts came to us, the school boards came to us and said, you know, this is federally illegal. What if we get in trouble? What if we're out of compliance with federal law? What if we lose our dollars? What this amendment does is it says that if you have any kind of loss of federal funding, you can stop. You can stop doing this. Shame on the federal government for making kids decide between their education and their medication, but we're not going to do that ourselves. Last but not least, it requires that a school district or charter school post on its website or a conspicuous place a statement regarding its decision not to comply with this, saying that we wish we could help your kids, but the federal government is telling us, no, we're not going to risk all of our kids' funding for the sake of what are really just 350 kids in the state of Colorado. A sad situation that I hope we never get to, but this is the belt and suspenders that helps protect all of our students.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in committee, members, I voted against this bill because it left the school districts wide open to have their federal money taken away. I came up with the exact same amendment that Representative Singer has come up with. And with this amendment, I will be in favor of the bill. We heard good testimony in the committee, heart-wrenching testimony of these kids that need to be able to use this. I have a problem with mandating that school districts do anything, but in this case where they are protected from not getting that federal funding, I will be in favor of the bill. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment L004? Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Singer, thank you for bringing these amendments. You know, I think the Singer-Brown amendment that we're talking about here today certainly answers the questions that I had in committee, and I'm glad you brought those, and I will be able to support your bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion on amendment L004? Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Typically, I wouldn't come up and speak twice on an amendment that has this much unanimity, but I just want to appreciate what the Agriculture Committee did. They asked me to actually lay the bill over in committee, and I proceeded to move with it in honor of the families that were there to show that the process can work for them. And now we probably should have both put our names on this amendment. It could have been the Brown-Singer amendment, the only kind of BS that stands up to any kind of test. With that, I renew my aye vote, and if you vote no, we'll just move Representative Brown's amendment.
Any further discussion on amendment L004? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of amendment L004. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Amendment L004 passes to the committee report. Representative Klingenschmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L008 to the committee report.
Thank you. Amendment L008 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Klingenschmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I came up with this amendment, and by the way, we have all the stakeholders on board. They helped me draft this amendment. I believe it's a friendly amendment. We'll see if Representative Singer confirms that. But the original bill was being nicknamed in the hallways as the pot on the school bus bill. And this amendment makes sure that if there is marijuana, it's only going to be administered by a caregiver, and it's not going to end up in some kid's lunchbox. We don't want to make the special needs kid the most popular kid on the bus because he has a lunchbox full of brownies that are being taken. So this makes sure that after the medicine is administered only by the caregiver, that the caregiver takes back possession of all the leftover brownies and takes them home with them so that they're not floating around the school bus, floating around the school. You have kids passing them to other kids. I don't think that's the intention of the bill, and so this amendment brings that into line, and I ask Representative Singer if he supports this as a friendly amendment.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Klingenschmidt. This is a friendly amendment. I always question the wisdom of, our House killing all your bills so quickly, but now I know it's because you can work on my bills and make them even better. So this is a friendly amendment. This clarifies our intentions, and I appreciate Representative Klingenschmidt's efforts to work with all the stakeholders.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L008? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And can one of you refresh my memory on what is the definition of a primary caregiver?
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Wilson, one of the challenging things here is we don't want to confuse caregivers in the medical marijuana system as defined in the medical marijuana code. Those caregivers are the ones that grow marijuana for patients. These primary caregivers would be an adult who is either a parent or someone who is appointed by that parent as another responsible adult, whether it's a nurse practitioner, doctor, somebody else who has a medical relationship with that child. So, for example, one of the kids that I work that I've worked with, Jack Split, his mom Stacy has to go to work, and so Jack has a 24-hour nurse that is with him at school, at other events. That nurse would have the responsibility as opposed to that mom, because that mom's got to get to work. So that's the idea of what this that is what that caregiver would be.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that, Representative Singer, because I could not remember what the definition was. So, also as a point of clarification, that definition I'm assuming is covered in the bill, and a caregiver, an adult caregiver, is that an 18 or 21-year-old?
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you have to be 21 to possess recreational marijuana. The majority of medical caregivers are going to be also the age of 21 or more, just because of the licensure standards and registration standards for those individuals. Typically, you have to be over the age of 21. There may be some spurious examples, but once again, this is someone that has gone through a rigorous check to make sure that these are not. Someone can't just show up at a school and say, "I'm this child's primary caregiver." There needs to be something accompanying that primary caregiver that gives them the authority to administer that medication. Just like right now, if you were to have a child with disabilities and you were to have a 24-hour nurse who had psychotropic medications with them, who had anti-seizure medications with them. Right now, there would be something that would need to clarify that student and that caregiver is, in fact, a responsible caregiver that has been appointed and assigned that duty.
Are there any further discussions on Amendment L008? Seeing none, the question before us is Amendment L008. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Amendment L008 passes. To the committee report. Representative Klingenschmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move Amendment L006.
Amendment L006 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Klingenschmidt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this amendment has to do with what is Charlotte's Web. Here's an article from Westword. Charlotte's Web is this low THC version with a high ratio of CBD to THC. So here is a report from a clinical trial, U.S. National Institute of Health at the University of Colorado is doing a study on whether or not the low THC type of marijuana helps children with Dravet syndrome. Dravet syndrome is a genetic, very specific form of epilepsy. A mutation occurs affecting the SCN1A gene. And when children have this unfortunate condition, they have been shown to receive help from low THC version of what they call Charlotte's Web. So, with this study going on, I want to read to you a testimony from an article in Westword of one of the parents who was administering the low THC Charlotte's Web to their child. It says Ms. Kingsley's initial dose, one that seemed to work, was extremely high in CBD, that's good, and very low in THC. Doesn't make the kid high, says his mother. The mother's name was Summer Forrest Larson. According to the test results by the Denver-based Can Labs, which are included in each batch of Charlotte's Web, the ratio was 88 parts CBD to 1 part THC, and that helped the child. The seizures reduced, and the child had clear mental acuity because there was not too much THC. But then, when they started to administer high THC version of Charlotte's Web, the seizures returned and the kid's mental acuity dropped. So the question is, do you want a clear-thinking child with no seizures, and that's what my amendment would provide, or do you want a kid who has seizures all the time and cannot think at school? That's what you're going to get if my amendment fails. So we're trying to define what is Charlotte's Web, what is low-potency medicine. We want to be, if it's medicine, then it should be given. But if it's not medicine, if it's just making the kids high at school, then it should not be given because it actually has been shown in this story to increase the seizures and reduce their mental acuity. So I ask for a yes vote on Amendment L006.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We were doing so well there, but no, I appreciate Representative Klingenschmidt did show me this amendment. It is not a friendly amendment, I have to say. The legislature should not be taking the job of doctors and pharmacists, and while this may work for seizures or certain types of seizures, there are 6 qualifying conditions for medical marijuana. If you're a child who needs a recommendation for medical marijuana, you need to go through 2 doctors plus the Department of Public Health before you're even granted the permission to be able to take that potentially life-saving medication. While this deals with seizures, this doesn't deal with cancer. This may not deal with chronic wasting. It may not deal with AIDS. There are numerous other medical conditions that we allow under Amendment 20 that we may be actually eliminating from kids arbitrarily. And so I ask for a no on this amendment because we should not be our job is not to be pharmacists. Our job is to be legislators. We should let the doctors make these decisions with parents and kids. The legislature shouldn't be the judges.
Any further discussion on Amendment L006? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L006. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. That amendment fails. To the committee report, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the spirit of continuing with amendments, I move Amendment L010 and ask that it be displayed.
Thank you. Amendment, one moment. Amendment L010 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On a serious note here, there's one person that I think has changed more minds on this issue than anybody else. It's not my constituent, but I consider him such anyway. And that is Jack Splitt and his mom, Stacy. If Jack had not showed up to my desk 2 years ago, a year ago, and said, this is what's going on in my school, my son deserves an opportunity for an education, and he shouldn't have to choose between his constitutional right to an education and a constitutional right to his medication. If he had not showed up then, I wouldn't have had the bill. If he had not showed up in committee last year, if he had not showed up in committee this year, where many of you remembered him, I don't think this bill would be where it is today. And so if we're lucky enough to get this bill through the House floor and across the Senate and to the governor's desk, I hope, and I hope that is your hope as well, that this bill will become known as Jack's Law when signed into law. And with that, I ask for an aye vote on Amendment L10.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L010? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of Amendment L010. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. L010 passes. To the committee report, Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I renew my motion for an aye vote on the committee report as amended.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report of House Bill 1373? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of the committee report. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The committee report passes. To the bill. Representative Singer.
Thank you. Madam Chair, it's been a long talk. I renew my motion for House Bill 1373 and look forward to continuing this discussion, as it looks like there might be some conversations in the well.
Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I heard this in committee, and I understand both sides of the argument on this, but I do still have a few questions. I know the amendment corrected a lot of things that went on, L004, but I still have questions. Number one, I have school districts calling, talking about some of these children have paras that are assigned to them within the school district that actually help. And I don't see that the bill, does it fully exempt them? Second would be the liability question for the school that, gosh forbid, this happened to get out of a pocket or is left somewhere and another kid grabs a hold of this. Is that liability addressed inside of the bill as we move forward? And then the other problem that I don't think can get resolved is this still is not permissive for school districts, but the first two questions would be appreciated.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the questions, Representative Becker. So, and you may have to remind me, since you asked two questions and I wasn't taking notes, but I'll take a stab at it. So the first thing that I heard in terms of, does this require paras or explicitly exempt paras or any other school staff? Basically, all the bill says right now is you've got two options, schools. You can choose to create your own policy around this to say it's the school nurse, it's the school principal, it's this teacher, it's this school counselor that will be administering this, and here's the parameters around it. Or you go back to the default, and the default is that a parent or an appointed professional caregiver makes that, administers that medication to that child. And like I said, it's administer and then take any remaining medication and walk away, lock it away. If it falls out of a student's pocket, That's a problem because it shouldn't have been in the student's pocket in the first place. Second of all, if it falls out of anybody's pocket, the same liability would apply as you would have a school nurse who would be distributing opiate or psychotropic medication. If they lose possession of that, typically the liability falls on top of that medical professional or school professional for being derelict in their job. I used to, be certified in medication administration. I worked in nursing homes. We counted our opiates and our psychotropics very closely, at least 2 or 3 times a day. And heaven forbid one of those things go missing, that was my head on the chopping block, and I'd probably be disciplined or more likely fired.
Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Rep. Singer, thank you for the answers. So just to clarify on the other question, that if the caregiver is a para that they have with them, like we have in some of the rural schools, they have to designate either the para or the nurse or the school principal has to administer. Is that correct?
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Becker, I'm going to keep trying. Hopefully, we'll get to the answer here. I hope I understand the question. If the designated caregiver, well, let's take it a step further and say that the parent is also a teacher. To make it a little less complicated, let's say the parent is also a teacher. The parent would have the ability to administer the medication to that child unless the school has created another policy to allow that child to be administered the medication. So, box 1, you've got the school creating a policy. If the school opts not to create a policy, then it defaults back to that parent or caregiver. If that parent happens to be a school employee, so be it. This shouldn't really be taking, but once again, with the amendment that we introduced, this should not be disrupting the school environment in any way. And so if the teacher has to disrupt the school environment and is a parent, that needs to be resolved. But this has to be done in a way that does not disrupt the educational environment, and the schools have 2 choices. Do nothing and let the parents make that choice about administering to their kids, or do something and create that policy.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1373? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Singer, I understand that this bill is for those who are physically challenged. I understand that. I want to address my concern about those who are creatively involved in this process, the rest of the student body. I understand the problem that we're trying to correct, but I'm concerned about the problem we are creating. In my previous conversation, a caregiver can be 18. I have some pretty creative 18-year-olds in school. Is a medical marijuana card in possession a justifiable defense to a student using marijuana at school?
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Wilson, no. That medical marijuana card is not it's not a license to use whenever, wherever. We have tobacco-free campuses. We have drug-free campuses. Whether you're 18 and a student or 25 or 35 and a teacher, there are rules around this. And so if you are a student, you have to have a parent or medically appointed caregiver administer to you. You cannot self-possess and self-administer as a student. And that was something that we tried to be very careful about boxing that out, because we heard that argument that, 18-year-olds can walk onto the school campus and hold this marijuana in their possession. That's not what this bill says. If that kid has medical marijuana in their pocket or in their backpack, that's a no-go. It's mom or dad that's got to give this to you, or the school's got to create a policy.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Singer, just to clarify one of your statements, that we have tobacco-free and drug-free schools, I would like to see those.
Is there any further discussion on House Bill 1373? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of House Bill 1373 as amended. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ayes have it. House Bill 1373 passes. Mr. Kohler, please read the title of House Bill 1430.
House Bill 1430, Representative Lebsaw, concerning the implementation and recommendation of the Oil and Gas Task Force regarding the sharing of oil and gas operators' development plans with affected local governments.
Representative Lebsaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move House Bill 1430, and I also move the committee report, the Transportation and Energy Committee report.
To the Transportation Committee report.
Members, we did two things in the Transportation and Energy Committee report. The first thing we did was we wanted to make sure that the language mirrored language in rule. That was the first amendment. And the second amendment just simply made sure that we were going to have counties either opt in or opt out from this planning information. I renew my motion for approval of the committee report.
Is there any further discussion on the committee report? Seeing none, all those in favor of the passage of the Transportation Committee report, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Committee report passes. To the bill, Representative Lebsaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, the COGCC started to do some good work this past winter. And what they did was they determined that it was important for developers, and in this case, oil and gas developers, to notify, consult, register, and plan with cities. However, the COGCC left out counties on the planning piece. And so all this bill does is say to the oil and gas industry, thank you for collaborating with our local governments. And it adds counties to the planning piece because we know how important it is to add developments to our comprehensive planning with our counties. I ask for a yes vote.
Is there any further discussion? Representative Quorum.
Thank you, members. Yes, we did hear this committee, and yes, we did hear that the COGC left this out. The task force studied it. It was left out on purpose. Now, my question to you, is it advisable to have a task force and they go around the state, they travel around the state, and then we as the legislature come in and we don't get everything we wanted in it, so we run a bill. Members, I don't think that's good policy. This was left out on purpose by the COGC. They said it is not necessary and left it out. Ask for a no vote.
Representative Lebsaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, this is fairly straightforward. Representative Quorum introduced a bill earlier this session and it actually passed today on third reading. And the main portion of that bill stated how important it was for local governments, including counties, to share their water plans and to make sure those water plans are in the comprehensive plan. And so all this bill does is recognize a different natural resource that's important to Colorado. If it's important to put water plans in comprehensive plans with counties, why is it not important to put oil and gas in those very same comprehensive plans? And so this is a very straightforward bill. Members, the COGCC started some good work and stated that if you're a city, then the oil and gas industry, before the implementation of the plan, before the drilling happens, then just share those plans with the city. And all this bill says is, yes, that's a good idea. It's also a good idea to share that information with the county. That's all this bill does. I ask for a yes vote.
I had Representative Quorum.
Thank you. Members, Representative Lebsaw is correct. We did do a bill today on that. But it was not done by a task force. And all reference to the Colorado Water Plan was stripped from the bill. This is basically an advisory to the local community. Members, I once again say that I don't think it's good policy that we take the results of a task force when we don't get everything we want. 2 months later, we start running legislations. Bad policy.
Representative Norberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I echo the comments of Representative Quorum, and I think we have to ask ourselves, what's even the point of having a task force, having a group of individuals from environmental organizations, from public sector, from private sector that will come together in good faith efforts to try and come up with good rules for our state if we as a legislature are just going to come in not less than 2 months after rulemaking has taken place and come up with legislation? What's the point? Well, I guess the point is to circumvent the task force. That's what this bill is all about. There was an intentional reason that the task force left this out. They wanted to see how this would work first with municipal governments before also adding county governments. And of course, that rule hasn't been even implemented yet. That rule is implemented May 1st. It came out of the task force unanimously. And yet here we are with a piece of legislation. Again, members, I'd ask for a no vote. What's the point in having a task force if we're just going to circumvent it?
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, colleague. I appreciate that. And you know, members, that was the argument that I heard when I introduced the bill. Representative Lebsack, don't violate the will of the promulgator, is what I was told. Members, I'm more concerned about not violating the will of the people. And a no vote on this bill says to all the hundreds of thousands of people who live in counties that you don't count. We should be, so right now, members, if you lived in the city and county of Denver, for example, oil and gas is required to just simply share their planning with the city and county of Denver. And so the city and county of Denver goes all the way up to like 52nd Avenue and borders Adams County. And so if you're a person who lives in the city and county of Denver, you get to be heard because the oil and gas industry is required, because you're a city and county, to share your plans. But if you live 1 block north of 52nd Avenue and you live in unincorporated Adams County, then you're not required to share those same plans. And so why is it, we've heard what's good for the goose is good for the gander down here sometime in this well. Why is it that we want to require oil and gas? It was so important to put in rule. It's so important to plan with your cities. And if the footprint of the oil and gas is within a city, you're required to share those plans with that city, up to 52nd Avenue. But once you get north of 52nd Avenue 1 block, you're not required to share it with that local government. This is leveling the playing field, ladies and gentlemen. Vote yes.
Representative Melton. Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I have a question. I guess I would invite anyone to answer this question. I really don't know the answer to it. That's why I'm asking it. But how many of our bills that we've introduced this year, out of the 450 some odd bills that we've introduced, have been the result of a task force deliberation? Does anybody know that? I mean, how many bills have we introduced out of our 450 bills that have been because a task force told us to do that? I know it's been none of mine. I don't know about others. I would hazard to guess probably not that many. You know, and the point I'm making here, of course, is that we have a duty as legislators to be responsive to our constituents. And we have a duty as legislators to look at a situation with our statutes and decide whether or not it's appropriate and whether or not the state should make a change. If a task force recommends something, then that's fine. But the buck doesn't stop there. The buck stops with us as legislators as being elected to represent the state and represent our constituents. If a task force doesn't recommend it, then I guess what we're hearing is we should just say, well, forget about it. The task force didn't recommend it, so our job here is done. I don't really think that's how we do it. So now, we could actually make our lives a lot easier by doing it that way, of course. I could, I guess at the end of this session, form my own task force. I could handpick my task force, and I could charge the task force with coming up with bill ideas for us for next year. I could even stack the task force towards inaction and basically make it so tough for them to make any recommendations that they really won't make any recommendations. And guess what? If we follow this logic, we won't introduce any bills next year except for the budget. We have to do the budget. We're required to do that. Now, of course, that's not how we do it down here. We represent our constituents. We represent the state. We introduce 400 bills here in the House at least every single year, and I would hazard to say less than 1% of them are a result of a task force recommendation. We need to represent our constituents, and it's clear that there's many constituents that aren't being represented in this cooperation that the industry is supposed to do with local governments, and they're not required to do that right now with the counties, and therefore they just won't. So this legislation is necessary in order to address concerns that people have in affected areas for drilling. I hope that we'll support it.
Representative Rydin.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I just want to mention that in some of our districts, it's not like all municipality and then outside it's unincorporated county. In my district alone, we have several pockets of unincorporated areas that are totally surrounded by the city of Aurora and Centennial and Foxfield. And it really seems unfair that folks that are within the city limits in Aurora, they would be protected by their city government. However, if they are just across the street in an unincorporated neighborhood, they would not have the same protections. I believe this is about fairness, and that's why I urge you to support House Bill 1430. Thank you.
Representative Corum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Foote, I have a very good working relationship with the governor who picked the task force. I will use my relationship with him to help him pick you a very successful task force. Representative Becker said the other day here that you need to move close, maybe you need to move closer to your food. Well, members, what's happened here is we have moved closer to our energy development. Those rights are years and years old. When those leases were made, there were no community. It was agricultural land. And we have encroached on those leases. And those leases are a property right. They have a right to develop those. We also heard in committee that there's not one single time that a municipality has asked for information that it is not provided. Much of the information they want is already available on the COGC website. Now, I'm not the most challenged member in this committee of using technology, but even I can go and find the website for the COGC. I can get their actions. I can get what they've approved. I can get what they've rejected. But members, not one single time has a municipality been denied meeting with a drilling company and having their concerns talked about. Not one single time.
Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, my county wants this. They want it because we're not moving closer to energy. Energy is moving closer to us. Planting oil rigs right in the middle of communities where children are playing. Schools aren't too far away. Where property values are being lost, because I already showed you that on the internet. I'm not challenged on the internet either. Where property values are being dropped, and where in that one particular area that's surrounded by Thornton, they don't get the information, neither does the county commissioners. What this bill does is this bill very specifically says, communicate with the county. What's so wrong with communicating with the county? Who cares what the task force did or did not do? Our job is to legislate. Our job isn't to sit there and say, well, if the task force didn't say it, then we can't. That's why we're elected, and we're not appointed by the governor. We're elected by the people. So when the people of Adams County tell me, I want to know, oil and gas companies should know, or should tell us what's going on, we should do it. It's nonsensical for oil and gas to lobby against this bill. Just talk to the counties. And as a note, Representative Corum, I have a question for you. Thank you, Representative Lepsock. You're kind of jacking with my chi here. I got a question for you. Didn't we just not pass a bill for you that talked about planning around water development for counties? I think that's what we did. So how is it that it's okay to communicate with counties on water development, where if there's a spill of water, it just results in kids playing in the in the street possibly? How is it that it's okay that we talk to counties about that for their developments, but it's not okay for oil and gas? I'm trying to understand the dichotomy involved in that. It should be okay for water, it should be okay for oil and gas, just for planning purposes. That's all it's for, planning purposes. If someone happens to create something with the water, the vapors that come out are H2O, which are good for us. Same cannot be said for oil and gas. This is just for planning development only, to talk to the counties. That's it. Should be no problems with that.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Representative Salazar, I like what you just said there. And you're right. I mean, if what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. And if we're going to have an issue in terms of planning problems with the county, and that there's encroachment happening with oil wells or with mineral rights, and that people are moving out, I think that we should have more planning involved. And so with that, members, I move Amendment L004 and ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L004 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what L004 does is it takes language from the water planning bill that we passed this morning on third reading, and it says let's apply that same language to oil and gas. Let's use the same standard. Again, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. Let's make sure that the counties have the information that they need to plan appropriately for schools, for neighborhoods, and to make sure that energy development can still happen. I don't think that this is an overreach. I ask for an aye vote on L004.
Representative Lebsock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, I voted yes on Representative Corum's bill in committee because I thought, and I voted yes today on third reading, because I believe that water plans, sharing your water plans with your community in a comprehensive plan is a good idea. And so specifically, the amendment is drafted from Representative Corum's bill having to do with water. And so this reaffirms not only how important oil and gas is in our communities, but it's so important that counties should be able to have the opportunity if they want to. And to be honest with you, there's an opt-in provision in this bill. On page 2, it says the county may request. And then on top of that, when I heard Representative Corum's and others concern about the bill, we put an opt-in provision in for counties and then an opt-out provision. All this is saying is if it's important to share your water plans in your comprehensive planning, why not share your oil and gas plans as a county? I ask for a yes vote in this amendment.
Representative Corum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would ask for a title ruling. I do not believe this fits under the title.
The committee will stand in a brief recess. The committee will come back to order. The chair rules that this amendment does not fit under the title. The amendment is lost. To the bill, Representative Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, so far we've heard a lot of arguments up here about how the water bill was similar to this bill. Well, it may have been. It may have been similar in one way, that it was permissive in asking the counties to do something that the state was implementing. The state water plan was doing. Let's get this correct. This bill says we are going to let the counties tell a business of what they should give us. That's exactly what it's doing. You have to give us your plans, not for just the current project you're working on. You have to give us your plans for 5 years. 5 years. Okay, so let's look at the oil and gas situation a year and a half ago as compared to what it is today. You want me to give you a plan for 5 years of planning? 5 years of planning that, first of all, why do I want to give you 5 years of planning and let my competition know what's going on? I'm not sure I'm willing to give you that. I think you bump into other things here rather than just your bill. You should not be asking for 5 years of plans. So we have a couple different differences here. First of all, this is not like the water plan because we're mandating to business after a county opts in or out what they have to give us. It's not permissive to the business, it's permissive to the county. Now, if it was permissive to the business, okay, great. Let's make it permissive to the business. Second, we have a problem with you saying, the bill saying, let's get 5 years of plans. 5 years of plans. That's pretty hard to predict as we move forward, and I also think I'm not willing in any business to give you my 5-year plan to the county. That's just not going to work. On the other hand, on whether or not counties work with these companies anyway. In committee, there were several examples of counties meeting on either a quarterly basis or on a regular basis with these businesses to get this done. The other portion, whether or not this should be cities or counties, you know that most of that development happens in the counties. That is why this wasn't approached in the first place. The way that we have it is working. Your bill mandates to a private business, yes, once a county opts in. But you are still mandating to a private business as to what you need to do. I'd ask for a no vote.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a bill that is very thoughtful in regards to planning. The COGCC rule promulgators decided it was important for oil and gas to share their plans with cities. And I agree. I agree with that rule. All this bill does is say, don't forget about our counties. Allow our counties to opt in to the planning as well. On line 3 of the bill, it says, a local government may request. That's all this bill is. This is good planning for our counties, good planning for our cities, and I renew my yes vote on the bill.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And members, even though that last amendment didn't get on, I still run in strong support of House Bill 1430. I just heard Representative Becker, Jay Becker, talk about how rural communities counties occupy occupy or hold, control, I don't know exactly the word you use, but that they have the most undeveloped or rural areas. And because every county in Colorado is different, I like that this bill is an opt-in and an opt-out for those counties. See, where I come from in my district in Arapahoe County, about 2/3 of my district is in Aurora, but a full 1/3 is unincorporated. It sits right in between Denver and Aurora. And because it sits right in between Denver and Aurora, it's probably the most dense urban area of my district. But because they're not a part of Denver or Aurora, they are at a disadvantage when it comes to planning. They don't have the abilities that the municipalities have in getting updates and being told what's happening with oil and gas development simply because they're in a county and they're not a part of a municipality. And in those types of circumstances, it would be beneficial for the county to be able to opt in and say, I'd like to have this information. Now, if you're in a community or a county that is very rural and you don't need that information, don't opt in, opt out. I don't see what the problem is when we're not requiring that any county get this information. We're just opening a door and giving them the option to get that information. So members, this is a very good bill. It's a very reasonable bill. Of all the oil and gas bills, I'd say this is probably the most reasonable. So members, I would ask for an aye vote on House Bill 1430.
Representative Wist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move L005 and ask that it be displayed.
Amendment L005 has been moved and is properly displayed. Representative Wist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're certainly hearing how this is permissive and how this is optional. This makes the bill entirely consistent. So if you may request that an operator be registered, this makes the earlier provision entirely consistent, so that the operator must register with the commission and may register with the local government. If we're truly saying that this is permissive, this makes the bill entirely consistent. Ask for an aye vote on L005.
Representative Lepsock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've got a question for the maker of the motion. And so in Recommendation 20, in the rules that were promulgated by the COGCC in regards to Recommendation 20, there were two pieces of Recommendation 20's, The first piece of Recommendation 20 was asking that the oil and gas operator register with both the city and the county. The second piece of Recommendation 20 stated that you shall plan with the city, but they left out county. And so with this amendment, are you referring to the third leg of the four-legged stool that says that you're going to register with both the city and the county, or are you speaking just to registering with the COGCC in regards to the planning piece?
Representative Wist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Lepsock, I'm just making your bill consistent. So if in one paragraph you're saying that they may request that an operator register with it to provide certain information, and those are on lines 7 through 17 of page 3, then the registration piece in terms of operator registration for advanced planning is optional. It's permissive, because you have the word shall on page 2, line 17, and the word may on page 3, line 4. And they're both with respect to operator registration for advanced planning. So my point is, Representative Lepsock, that the two are arguably inconsistent. To say that they may request that an operator register in one provision and that they shall register in another provision is internally inconsistent.
Representative Lepsock.
Thank you, Representative Wist. And I want to be really thoughtful about this amendment, because I see the spirit of this amendment is good. I just want to make sure that, because there were two pieces to Recommendation 20. There was the recommendation that you register with both city and county. And then there's the fourth portion, which is the planning piece. And so I just want to make sure that what I did was I was very careful in the drafting of the bill and the amendments to mirror the rule very closely. And I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing with this amendment.
Is there any further discussion on Amendment L005? Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This guts the bill. You have to start asking yourself the question, how many of these oil and gas companies will register if they may register? None of them. Not one. And it guts the entire bill. And so what this is about is this is to work around what the spirit of the bill is, which is talk to the counties. Talk to the counties on things. And so what this one here does is it says, meh, maybe we will, maybe we won't. Which is not the spirit of this bill. I ask for a no vote.
Representative Melton. Mr. Minority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We hear that this guts the bill. Well, this amendment does what the sponsors have been saying for the last half an hour that this bill does. So it makes it permissive. We kept hearing, no, it's permissive, it's permissive, it's permissive. So if this guts the bill, that kind of negates their argument that they've been telling this entire chamber for the last 30 minutes. It's either permissive or it's not. So if this somehow guts the bill by passing this amendment, then what they have been telling this entire chamber, the intention of this bill, is not the same thing. I urge an aye vote on this amendment.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As for title ruling.
The House will stand in a brief recess. The committee will come back to order. The chair rules this amendment also does not fit under the title. Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1430, Representative Jay Becker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, this bill, as you see, is not permissive. This bill allows counties to opt in and out, then requires that the business or the company give them this information. It's already being done. This is already being done. We had several examples of that. But on top of that, they asked for the 5-year plan. I'm not sure we can predict the 5-year plan and giving out that information of well sites and what goes on there. I think that that's going just a little bit too far of where the sites are. Looking at this, it's not the same, again, as the water bill that we passed. That was a state water plan that we allowed the counties to put into their master plan. This isn't the same. This allows counties to opt in and out of a plan that mandates to business. I'd ask for a no vote.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, members, this bill isn't asking too much. Currently, the COGCC promulgated rules that stated if you're an oil and gas operator, before you do make the operation happen, just share your plans with the city. All this bill does is says share those plans with the county. That's all this bill is. A local government may request an operator to share their plans with the county. That's all this bill is. I ask for a yes vote.
Representative Foote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, you know, I was taking a look at this bill after it was introduced, and I was thinking, wow, this is a pretty modest bill, really. I mean, the industry already is supposed to do this with cities, and so why can't they do the same thing with the counties? And then I learned that the Oil and Gas Association was opposed, and I have to say I was shocked that they were opposed to this bill. I was wondering why, because what we hear from the Oil and Gas Association here is that they welcome cooperation with local governments. And in fact, they talk all the time about how they do, in fact, cooperate with local governments. So I went and took a look at some things. And for example, I took a look at COGA's mission statement. The mission statement says that COGA values authentic, transparent engagement with communities. But I guess we're in a situation now where they're opposing sharing their plans with communities, so I just don't see how that's consistent. But I decided to look a little bit further at some of their public statements. There's a public statement from COGA after the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission adopted task force regulations. So this is pretty recent. And it says in that statement that they put out to the world, we are committed to working with our operators, our communities, and the state. But again, refusing to share plans with the counties doesn't sound to me like it's really actually working with communities. But I decided to read a little further again on some public statements from COGA. And this one came in December of last year. The statement said, quote, we will continue to do the difficult and important work of finding reasonable and workable solutions with our friends and neighbors throughout the state. I took a little bit of a look further again, and I looked at a statement from November 2014. Today we celebrate the local governments and tireless elected officials of Northwest Colorado who secured responsible drilling. They worked hand in hand with county commissioners, municipalities, and elected officials, securing future drilling of the spirit of compromise. This is what they're saying, but I guess we have to ask, what are they doing? What they're saying is, in another press release, engagement has become a major part of doing business. Another press release said, this is a challenging time for the industry, which makes it more important than ever that we fully engage with impacted communities. But again, if you're not sharing information with the counties and refusing to do that, how is that consistent with what they're saying? Quote, over the last 5 years, COGA has expanded its mission from a focus on state regulations in the General Assembly to broad programmatic engagement that includes community and local government outreach and diverse education efforts. This is what they're saying. Quote, COGA has consistently engaged in local governments to help create operating agreements that respect the rule of law and meet the needs of local communities. We will continue, they say, to do the difficult and important work of finding reasonable and workable solutions with our friends and neighbors throughout the state. From 2014, quote, the Colorado Oil and Gas Association has been working for more than 2 years to help ensure local governments have a voice when it comes to energy development in their communities. And I could go on, I'll just say one last one. Quote, the negotiations, local regulations, and agreements are perfect examples of how we can and should do business in Colorado. We have a long history of local control here and letting all sides voice their concerns before we make critical decisions. So opposing this doesn't make any sense. If this is what's really happening, and it's not just what we're hearing from a press release, if this is what's really happening, opposition to this bill just makes no sense. It's what KOGA says they're already doing. It's what they say. Are they doing it? I don't know. That's the only way that I can actually make sense of their opposition to this bill. But I'll be happy to hear from others about why it is that KOGA doesn't feel like they can do what they're already saying they're doing.
Representative Sane.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I've heard a lot of phrases like, we're only asking for, and this is common sense, and this bill is a simple bill, it's a common sense bill. And I heard an argument about a four-legged stool earlier, a four-legged policy stool. Well, counting up all the bills that have come from this side of the aisle, I think, Representative Lebsack, you may want to start owning a 12-legged stool. But in all seriousness, colleagues, the amendment that was offered earlier by Representative Wist, if we're making a bill consistent across the legislative language, and if for some reason that's rejected by making it consistent across a piece of legislation, then that's a bad bill. So I'd urge a no vote on this.
Representative Quorum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, I think what you're doing here may actually make it more difficult for the counties because you're requiring them to register with the COGC. That information is already available. They have not been denied this information. You're just making more bureaucracy is what you're doing. And, you know, I think I'm a little bit concerned. I was a couple of days ago, I guess it was actually yesterday, I went and listened to an energy analyst, and they're talking about the future of the oil and gas industry. Year to date, there was 1,332 rigs in the United States. Today, there's 460. And what they said that we're going to do is we're going to look at where is the most economical place to bring those rigs back. And they don't expect this thing to turn around for 2020. So it's pretty hard to do a 5-year plan when you're guessing at it's 2020 before things are going to improve. But they said, you know, we'll bring those rigs back to where it is the most efficient for us to do business. Overburdensome regulations, we're not going to go there. But this is not overburdensome. This information is already available. They have not been turned down. Simply call the drilling company. Garfield County, Representative Rankin is here. I'm sure he's going to bring that up. But they absolutely have a great working relationship with the oil and gas industry. They have a person on staff that strictly deals with oil and gas. And there's not a lot of contentious situations. I think they're drilling right in the middle of Parachute, if I recall. Brings a lot of money into their county. But another thing we got to remember is cities annex counties. These properties are within a county, they're annexed into the city. So I don't know about you, but I've heard of situations where counties have gone miles and miles and miles from their basic population to annex. One of the things that I see every Friday night when I go home and it irritates me is a speed trap by Marson going up through the canyon. There's absolutely no houses there, but there's a cop sitting there waiting for you to do more than 45 miles an hour. Members, this bill is not necessary. I think it puts a burden on the oil and gas industry. I think it adds a bureaucratic level to the counties that they may or may not want. And I encourage you to vote no on this bill.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill, Representative Rankin.
Well, I can't help it. I've been listening to the discussion. I represent 9 towns surrounded by dependent on, very integrated with the oil and gas industry. We've been doing this for 20 years, get thousands of oil and gas wells. We don't need one more piece of legislation. It already works. If it's not working for your town or your county, come visit with me. Come go with me to visit the oil and gas companies. Come talk to the county officials and the town officials. It can work. You have to make it work on the local level because people are willing. You don't need more legislation. We don't need one more niche in the war on oil and gas. That's all this is. It's just one more step. It works already. We've got plenty of legislation in place to make it work.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bill, I'm sorry to say, is just another part of the war on oil and gas, I believe, that continues in this state. We've heard several bills like this, some worse, some a lot worse. You know, even the title is misleading. The title says, concerning the implementation of a recommendation of the Oil and Gas Task Force regarding the sharing of oil and gas operators' development plans. You know, we heard in committee that the task force asked for plans for municipalities, not for counties. I think that is true. This bill undermines the governor's task force, and it undermines the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. This bill is a solution looking for a problem. We don't have a problem here. Go to the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. Get that information. It's another step, another cost for the oil and gas industry. It is not needed. Why have it? I would ask that you vote no on this bill.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the discussion today. Members, the abbreviated title on the board there says it all. That's what the bill does. Oil and gas operators, share your development plans with local governments. That's what we ask other developers to do. We're not asking anything else. We already do this with our cities. Allow the people living in our counties to have that same respect. Share your plans. That's all this bill does. Thank you.
Seeing no further discussion on House Bill 1430, the question before us is the passage of a division has been called.
See if there's something different in the water over here.
question is the adoption of House Bill 1430. A division has been requested. All of those in the chamber not entitled to vote, please be seated and remain seated. All those in favor of the adoption of House Bill 1430, please stand and remain standing in one place until the count is taken. You may be seated. All those opposed, please stand and remain standing in one place until the count is taken. You may be seated. House Bill 1430 passes. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to lay over House Bill 1381 and House Bill 1387 until tomorrow, April 21st.
Seeing no objections, House Bill 1381 and 1387 has been laid over. Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
Seeing there are no objection, the committee will rise and report.
The House will come back to order. Mr. Kohler, please read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Madam Speaker, Committee of the Whole begs the reports in consideration of the following attached bills being second reading. The makes the following recommendations thereon. House Bills 1348 amended, 1366 amended, 1373 amended, 1430 amended, passed on second reading, or regards placed on the calendar of third and final passage. House Bills 1381, 1387 laid over until April 21st, retaining their place on the calendar.
Representative Esgar.
Madam Speaker, I move the House adopt the Committee of the Report, or Committee of the Whole.
You have heard the motion, and there are no amendments. The question before the House is the adoption of the report of the Committee of the Whole. Mr. Kohler, please open the machine, and members proceed to vote. Close the machine. With 62 ayes, 3 noes, and no excuse, the report of the Committee of the Whole is adopted. Announcements and introductions. Don't everybody rush the podium at once here. Representative Vigil.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of the Agriculture, Livestock, and Natural Resource Committee, we will not be meeting today. We don't have anything on the calendar, so enjoy your time.
Representative Young.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members of Appropriations and those of you that have bills awaiting in Appropriations, here's a preliminary list for 8 o'clock this Friday, April 22nd. House Bill 1288, House Bill 1386, House Bill 1434, House Bill 1388, Senate Bill 62, Senate Bill 30, House Bill 1167, House Bill 1304. I have some additional bills we're considering. I'll come back and add those tomorrow if needed. Thank you.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to announce my sister from Chicago flew in just to see the proceedings today, and maybe the rest of my family. Please welcome my sister, Rachel Singer.
Representative Court.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, there's a slight change on our finance calendar this afternoon. Representative Primavera will go first, and then we will go in the order that the rest of them are in. Thank you.
Announcements. Representative Duran, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I just want to give you advance notice that Friday is going to be a long day. And I know that there's some people who are going to attend the climate change debate that's in the building. We are going to continue to do floor work until we're done with everything we need to. So make sure you have plans for lunch on Friday. And there is a chance that we may be here late. So just want to give you that advance notice. Thank you.
Representative Kraft-Tharp, Everett, and Neville. And Representative Tyler, Representative Danielson, and Representative Lontine, along with Representative Norman and Representative Leonard and Representative Sias. Please proceed, Representative Everett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, listen up. 17 years ago today.
Give me a minute here. Excuse me, Representative Everett. Could we have your attention for an important announcement at the well, please? Thank you, members. Please proceed, Representative Everett.
17 years ago today, I was on break from class in law school, and I walked in and saw the monitor on the TV screen in the student union. And I saw a helicopter flying above Columbine High School, and I could see my neighborhood in the background. And I subsequently found out that there had been a huge tragedy and many innocent lives lost.
Representative Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And members, I will certainly never forget the day 17 years ago. I won't forget that day. I won't forget the victims of that day, and nor should we ever forget. So in honor of that, Madam Speaker, I would request a moment of silence to honor those who we lost that day.
Moment of silence granted.
Thank you, members. We
Thank
are
you.
Columbine.
Representative Kraft-Tharp.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I really want to take this moment also to thank our mental health providers who 17 years ago saw that there was a tragedy happening, jumped up, ran, immediately available. Our first responders were there. They live with this tragedy every day. So if we could also be remembering them and we will never forget. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Are there further announcements and/or introductions? Seeing none, Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until later today at 1:30 p.m.
The motion is to stand in recess until later today at 1:30 p.m. Seeing no objection, so ordered. We're in recess.